so today we're going to practice the milestone. Yes, these assessments are very important because they measure where you are and we can track your progress. Excuse me, you don't want to take the milestone?
No.
Okay, well we have to take the milestones and we'll go through some practice questions so we can prepare for it. You need to take tests, Cameron. It's very important that you take these assessments.
Yeah, what if I don't pass the test and go to the next grade?
That is a major thing with assessments. If you don't pass, they say that you cannot go to the next grade. We'll talk about that later, okay?
Assessment's so important.
The assessments are important so they can track your progress, but later on we'll talk about why they're important, okay? Thank you first and foremost for joining me to try to figure out how we can help the kids with assessments a little bit more. I don't know where the rest of my coworkers are, but I thank you for joining me. I wanted to talk to you because I mentioned assessments to my group yesterday. They wasn't too happy about it, and I feel like assessments are kind of taking over because of neoliberalism. Do you know what that is?
Well, so how did that take over? How did neoliberalism take over?
Okay, so I was reading an article called "The Ideology at the Root of All of Our Problems," and the author seems to think that neoliberalism sees competition as a defining characteristic of human relations. So basically meaning that these private sectors are trying to do the same thing for the public sectors and it's not working for students. And so that's why we have students in class who are not ready for assessments or they have apprehensions about it because of the things that's going on that happens with neoliberalism. Also, another fact I looked at is the reign of error by Ravitch. He stated that the low average test scores of the U.S. students largely reflect our extremely high poverty rate and our relative lack of attention. So therefore, with these assessments, we need to kind of keep their attention going. We have to have these different assessment things like formative assessments. They need to be engaged. So if the kids are not engaged in what they're doing, and they will have a lack of participation, so they're not going to be thrilled about assessments.
So how do you think we can make it more fun for them?
Okay, to make it more fun, I did a lot of research, so I wanted to let you know. So I looked at another article called Integrating Differentiated Instruction by Thomason and Matigi. And he stated, without using such individual-specific data, we give ourselves permission to teach one size fits all. So with that, again, you have to tailor each learning style to each student because you won't be able to just say, okay, this is one way of teaching. You have to have a variety of teaching and a plethora of different things for them to do. I also looked at different activities like rolling the dice, spoons and sticks, which basically you're randomizing the kids to choose so they can understand the material a little bit more. To talk about that a little bit more is another statement from Chris Steins. He stated that the nation is obsessed with performance. With the spoons and sticks and rolling the dice, those are kind of like the random sampling. And so if you look at Spencer and Miguel Kagan, they have this whole cooperative learning thing, and they also suggest that to get a representative sample of class and calling on the same students to repeatedly volunteer to answer, you have to break that code. So with my students for assessments, what I would like for us to do is kind of, think outside the box. Formative assessments are not, definitely it's not nothing for students to be afraid of, but we have to step outside of the box to basically cater to the students. Do you have any more questions?
Oh, you did a great job.
Okay, so another thing I wanted to ask you, with lesson planning, how are you doing your lesson plans?
My lesson plans are pretty much geared towards the particular things that I would have for the day. I'll select a topic and I'll have an overall skeleton, but then I'll leave room for engagement between the students and myself. Mm-hmm. And so if it takes off on a different branch of that tree, it's still in the subject, but we're expanding, trees. So now instead of just having one tree, we're making a forest.
Got you. Now I wanted to, I wish the other coworkers were here because I wanted to throw in a suggestion. I was also reading Matigi and Wiggins, they have a great article called Understanding by Design Framework. So basically, this lesson plan keeps the end goal in mind. So instead of just focus on standard, we need to know what the students should learn. How would they learn this? What skills are transferable from the test that could happen in real life? So I want us to incorporate understanding by design, because once you have that end goal in mind, you can't waver it. So the students will know what they need to learn, and it also helps us as teachers to try to tailor each student. Again, not doing the one size fits all curriculum.
Okay.
So you think we can do that?
Yeah, we should do.
So what I want to do starting tomorrow, I want to introduce the roll the dice activity, and also the sticks and spoons, which is really good. Each student will have a chance to talk. They have to know the content. So we'll introduce the content first. So for example, if you have Joshua in your class and you have Marguerite in your class, each student is responsible to know their information, because we will do a random sampling, and so once they stand up, they have to know their answer. And it's kind of not a right or wrong answer, but it's for us to kind of do checkpoints to see where the students are. So when it is time for assessments, they're not apprehensive about it, and we can kind of change the neoliberalism flow of it. I feel like what we've been doing has not been working, because I'm noticing our teachers here are kind of scared to step outside the box and be creative. And like we talked about Wiggins all the time, like Wiggins would not appreciate us not doing something that is just sticking to the standards. Like, just because we have assessments coming up, we can still make it fun and engaging for the students.
Sounds wonderful.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So overall, I have learned a lot about assessments in this class. In the beginning, I didn't even know the difference between formative and summative assessments, and so just having that background knowledge will be a tremendous help in my future classroom. I did not know that neoliberalism played a huge role in assessments, also with the opportunity gaps. I never heard of that until we started reading more articles and the different ways that you can keep your students engaged with different tasks. I also didn't know about 3-2-1 and note-taking are disguised as formative assessments. And I just took a lot back from this class. So in the video, that was me from my perspective.